I would like to go ahead and call the April 22nd, 2020 regular meeting of the Governing Board of the Chandler Unified School District to order. Mrs. Nye, could you please do our roll call?
Barb Marsden.
Here.
Laura Bruner.
Here.
David Evans.
Evans is here.
Unmute David.
Having trouble hearing David.
Okay. Lindsay Love.
Here.
And Karen McGee.
Here. Thank you, Mrs. Nye. We'll go ahead and do our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the April 8th, 2020 regular board meeting. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 8th, 2020 regular board meeting as presented. This is Lindsay.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Sharon will second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes for April 8th, please say aye.
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 David, I don't know if you can get closer to the microphone or turn up your volume a little bit. It's very, very difficult to hear you.
Okay. Is that any better?
That's much better. Thank you. Our next agenda item is to approve payroll for April 9th, 2020, and our current expenditures. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President.
Yes,
Go ahead,
Lindsay.
Karen.
Oh, Karen? Okay.
Okay, this is Karen, and I make a motion to approve payroll for April 9th, 2020, and current expenditures.
And this is Lindsay, and I will second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving our payroll for April 9th, 2020, and the current expenditures, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next is correspondence. Dr. Castile, is there any correspondence for us?
None this evening, Madam President.
Thank you. And I guess the next item is yours. Could you please present our consent agenda this evening?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, as you see, we have a very abbreviated board meeting tonight just to get some business moving here. So we have monetary gifts that have been donated to schools in the amount of $20,405.04. First Things First agreement with the Chandler Care Center. This is an annual grant renewal for the between First Things First and the Chandler Care Center. It's effective July 1, 2020 through June 30th of 2021. We're presenting it this evening. This agreement provides $250,000 in funding to support the Care Center Family Resource Center programs, including parenting activities and referrals, supporting families in their knowledge of child development, health, and parenting, recommending approval of continuing that agreement and grant. We have an intergovernmental agreement between Chandler School District and the City of Chandler. This agreement is for road improvements on Gilbert Road pertaining to High School number 7. And we have an intergovernmental agreement between Chandler Unified School District and the town of Gilbert. This is improvement of intersection of East Ocotillo Road and south of 148th Street related to Rice Elementary. Human Resources, Employment Separation, and Compensation for 2020-21. We're recommending approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Castile. Could I please get a motion from the board to approve the consent agenda?
Madam President, this is Dave Evans. I move that we approve the consent agenda.
And Karen will second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. The consent agenda has been approved. We have one action item for this evening, and this is our scholarship recipients. And earlier this evening, the school board discussed in executive session some of the nominees for the scholarship, and I believe that Ms. Love is going to make a motion for
Madam
our.
President. Sorry. Go ahead. Madam
Ms. Love?
President, I'm here. Madam President, I move that the governing board select students C and E as recipients for the 2020-2021 CUSD board scholarship at $500 each.
Laura Bruner, second.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on this?
I just
Any
want to.
questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mrs. McGee?
I just want to thank Dr. Castile for her generosity, and which allows us to give these scholarships.
And I would like to say, too, that we had a number of very deserving candidates, and it's something that I feel is a very, special moment to be able to read about some of the achievements and the struggles that some of our students have had, and see how resilient that they are, and that they still want to continue to further their education despite all of the challenges that they may have had during their lives. So with that, if there's no other comments, I will go ahead and ask for a vote. All those in favor of awarding the governing board scholarship in the amount of $500 to candidates C and E, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Mrs. Nye, I assume that you will then inform the Chandler Education Foundation of our recipients, and that they will move forward with notifying them and taking care of administering these, correct?
Yes, I will do that tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much. Okay.
President, can you excuse me for
yes.
1 second?
Yes, Mr. Evans.
I just got a text from one of the people who's viewing, and they said that could we let the technicians know that the live stream has stopped?
Mrs. Nye, I assume that are our technicians on?
Yes. Mr.
Okay.
Holland just checked it, so.
On Facebook, it says it will resume shortly.
Okay.
I know that we've been having a little bit of internet issues during the day.
Okay, our feed here is showing it's up, so.
Okay, then we will go ahead and continue.
It's not showing up on my version of Facebook right now, just to let you know.
Okay.
Same for me as well.
Okay. If you hit refresh, it might.
It's just coming back now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Then we will continue on with our information items. Student activity, auxiliary operations, and tax credit reports. Mrs. Berry.
Madam President, members of the board, the student activity, auxiliary operations, and tax credit reports are reported from July of 2019 through March of 2020, and they are provided for your review.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, we will go.
This is Dave Evans.
Yes, Mr. Evans.
I did have a question for Mrs. Berry. So those student activity reports probably look like you've never seen before. Is there anything that stands out, Mrs. Berry?
I think right now what we're working on internally is trying to figure out and review all of the outstanding fines, fees, and potential credits that students have related to student activity, tax credit, and auxiliary accounts. And so right now we're working with each of our schools to determine each of their negative accounts and where maybe there are some surplus that they can fund specific activities that weren't able to collect fees for. And then we're also looking at how can we give credit for the future. So we're assessing that. We're also working with the Arizona Department of Revenue because right now there's no allowance for the refunds of tax credit. And so we have asked for the Department of Revenue to give us additional guidance on that so that we can give some additional information out to parents. So we're at a point where we're still internally working on some specific things to try to help individual accounts and individual schools, and then looking at options for families for the future.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad that I'm glad to know that, and hopefully, I know you'll be very transparent about that as you get more information. So I'm sure everybody's wondering. So thank you.
Absolutely.
If there's no other questions, we'll go on to the next agenda item. Dr. Nance.
Madam President, members of the board, the Vista Higher Learning Spanish resources will be used by sixth grade dual language immersion teachers at CTA Liberty to support Spanish instruction. Additionally, they will be used at Bogle Junior High and ACP Oakland to support students transitioning to junior high who are already fluent in speaking Spanish or are heritage speakers. In accordance with ARS 15721, the curriculum will be placed on display for the 60-day public review period for comment at the Melinda Romero Instructional Resource Center starting April 23, 2020. To abide by CDC guidelines during the COVID-19 pandemic, two options are being given to be able to provide the 60-day review feedback. So to view the physical copy, we have an email address for our curriculum and assessment admin assistant, so we can schedule an appointment, or you can view it online. A version of the materials will be available with the following links listed in this agenda item, and an email address where they can provide their written feedback as well. The funding for training and materials would be provided through the district textbook budget, and its estimated cost of the purchase is $17,065.
Thank you, Dr. Nance. Are there any questions from the board?
This is Laura Bruner.
Yes, Laura.
I was curious if Mrs. Nance could tell us the process that it goes through before being posted to the public. For example, getting recommendations from staff members or how that looks.
Sure. Anytime we're looking at a new curriculum adoption, we reach out for resources from related vendors. We have the teachers who may be utilizing that adoption provide some feedback, as well as administrators from those sites. And this one, we have a little bit more of the electronic version of feedback taking place, just because we didn't get our staff back right after break. And then once we have our final recommendation, we also have our director of equity, and some of our parents on our equity advisory board also put a lens on any of our adoptions that we're looking at.
Madam President, this is Lindsay. I actually do have a question.
Yes,
I see that this program is sixth grade, or students transitioning into sixth grade. Just out of curiosity, because I've heard so many great things about the dual language immersion programs, do we start children off in some of the earlier grades sooner with this, or does it always tend to start kind of in the sixth grade?
Our current dual language immersion programs start at kindergarten at both Tarwater and Liberty. And then this next year, we are actually opening a Spanish immersion preschool on Bologna's campus that will enable parents to enroll there and feed into our DLI programs as well.
Thank you. And I guess, because I know that Tarwater can feed into Bogle, which is where this program is being projected to go into. is there anything that you foresee with like the program that they're using at Tarwater and like the transition to Bogle with this one?
We really don't. We actually have been having collaborative meetings between our junior high and high school campuses that will be feeders to our elementary DLI programs for the past 2 years. So all of those administrators have been in contact and are understanding the flow of moving from the elementary to the secondary curriculum.
Thank you, Mrs. Nance.
Dr. Nance, when we're looking yes, Mr. Evans.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll follow you.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Nance, this sounds like it might be something new in terms of heritage students or native speakers. And it seems that in the past in Arizona's history, native speakers were not allowed to take such classes. What's the change in philosophy there? And then what does it look like? What's different about how we educate native speakers? What are we trying to capture in order to make them more, I guess, fluent in their native language?
Sure. This will be a new program that ACP Oakland is looking at. The reason they're pulling in this, what we're calling heritage speakers, is they will actually be getting elementary students feeding into them from Liberty campus that will already be fluent and at a higher level than our traditional junior high students are, who are working on their foreign language credits and coming in without prior second language knowledge. So we're working on applying this for one class as a preface to our DLI classes coming in the following year.
Okay, and then will we move to earlier classes after this year, earlier grades of native speakers as well? Is that kind of what you were saying? For this particular book, no. This is just going to be used at the junior high. Yeah.
We are looking
Right.
at some support for our ELL students who can get both English and their natural language or their language of origin instruction. So that is something we're looking at all our campuses, what support we can provide.
Dr. Nance, if I could add to that just real quick. Ms. Evans? Mr. Evans?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Is this Mr. Narducci?
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback on Dr. Nance's great response there. OILIS has made it possible for dual language or two-way immersion programs to occur. Dr. Nance and I have been looking into models that we may be bringing to the board in the future of a two-way program earlier, which would allow heritage kids in those programs. But there's going to be more on that as we've been attending some seminars and workshops as to how that would work with our native speaking students who could be in a two-way immersion program.
Okay, I get it. Thanks. And then, Mr. Narducci, let me follow up to that then. So as students are have access to a higher level of language, DLI, whatever it's called, then we have to support them with resources, as in educators who can teach other subjects eventually in whatever language, whether it's Mandarin or Spanish. And how do we propose to move forward with that so that those students can then matriculate into the secondary school and potentially, continue in dual immersion languages? I know I taught in Seattle, and in the neighboring district, they've been doing this for years now, and there are some schools where their entire day takes place in their new language, in students' new language. But it was very difficult to find science teachers and math teachers who were fluent, who could teach that content level at.
Right. Remember, Evans, we know those districts. We work with districts in Oregon and Portland that do a 90 10 models, some others in Utah that use a 50-50. We are a 50-50 model. And so we would always define what subjects would be the content area courses that are taught through a targeted language. The biggest piece for our programming will be the fact that we have the chance to be able to move those content areas forward and try to move them into areas where they're more language rich. Because you're correct, we do teach content in a different language. We don't teach language through that content area. So, and that's what the BLI program is all about. So we are using some states like Utah and Oregon who have been doing this for 17 to 25 years, doing it well, doing it successful as our models, especially if we go into a two-way program, which would allow native speakers to learn from English-speaking students where the targets are just flipped. Our heritage speakers may be wanting to learn English better, and our other students that are in the target language of either Mandarin or in Spanish would be together in the same classroom, but they would still be getting their content on a 50-50 basis. That 50-50 heads more towards the social sciences a lot of times because there's a lot of art and literature that's able to be read and taught, by our targeted language teachers.
Sure. And then one more question back to Dr. Nance. So obviously, Dr. Nance, the first step is to do the review of the books and then move forward once we have a chance to approve those.
Yes. We'll have them on display for 60-day review.
Great. Thank you.
Dr. Nance or Mr. Narducci, is next year going to be the first year that CTA Liberty has a sixth grade in in DLI Spanish?
Yes.
Okay. So this is and so basically we will have next year the full range from kindergarten all the way through sixth grade at CTA Liberty.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to issues for consideration for the 2021 political agenda. The Arizona School Boards Association requests that each school district governing board review the attached 2021 political agenda and reaffirm their top 5 priorities for the ASBA Legislative Committee to consider on June 15th, 2020. Each district may submit 2 additional priorities for consideration. They will be the basis for the discussion at the official delegate assembly on Saturday, September 12th, 2020. These proposals are due Friday, May 29th, 2020. Given the current unprecedented circumstances, an additional option has been added to the submission form. If the district would like to duplicate a duplicate of what they submitted last year, last year's recommendation from the Chandler Unified School District are attached in this agenda item. So we are supposed to discuss this, and we will bring it back at our next meeting. So on, I believe it's the second attachment called Top Priorities, CUSD Top Priorities for the 2020 Delegate Assembly. This was approved May 8th of 2019. Now, as everybody knows, our legislature is on recess. They are supposed to come back. The last I heard, they were going to adjourn for the year, but then I believe I got a notification today that said since all of the bills that many of the legislators had worked so hard to get through committees and things would just go away, they wanted to go ahead and reconvene as a legislature. So we're not quite sure exactly what's going to be going on or what that's going to look like. But at this point in time, I kind of feel like this year's legislative session was kind of not much of anything got done. They kind of did some of the bare bones budgeting things and then left. So I personally, last year we chose 3 top priorities, and then we had additional items for consideration. We are allowed to have up to 5 priorities of the ones that are listed on the memorandum from the ASBA. political agenda. Well, I guess it's not really on the memorandum. We have to do the link for the 2020 political agenda. So I would like to kind of get an idea as to whether the consensus is we just reaffirm our priorities from last year due to the fact that our legislature did not make much progress in anything with these, and just kind of go from there. So does anybody have any comments on this?
Is Miss Berry available right now?
Yes, I am.
Oh, hi.
If you could add when you're ready.
I just was wondering if you could give a short summary. I know there's like pieces here and there of what people know regarding what the top priorities, the progress that was made. For example, we had special education funding being adequate as one of the goals, and I know they were working on that, but then that came to an abrupt halt. So I was wondering if you could just fill us in on that, as well as the DAA progress, so that then we know where we're at when we're looking at these priorities.
Yes. So I have taken a look, and I'd say the three top priorities last year that we put on here, with the revising the school finance formula to stabilize it, to dedicate revenue sources to this, for the, that piece, we had 4 items that we as Chandler Unified voted on. And we used our education finance reform group as our platform. And then we have our own individual that we helped, that Marcus Dellartino, who helps us run bills that might not come from our education finance reform group. And so we took the governing board's 3 top priorities and the 2 that we've written on here, and we voiced those concerns as we started the legislative session actually in the fall, where we're prepping for that. And the 4 items that we addressed and hit hard in the fall were special education, and that ended up being a Senate Bill 1060 that was important, and we still think that's really important. That was going to go through. We felt like we had a really good chance of getting additional special education funding, but then COVID-19 took place, and that bill is pretty much, we thought, with the skinny budget being approved, was not going to go forward. That would have meant about $2 million to Chandler Unified. So that's still something we feel very passionate about and should be something that we carry on, and we hope to get additional special education funding for the future. That formula has not been changed in a couple decades and really needs to be changed and updated. One of the other areas that we worked on was the School Facilities Board. Not only were we asking for processes and procedures to be changed, but also expansion of building renewal and new construction dollars. Now, a number of things happened. Our school district was privileged to go down and meet with the new director, Dr. Castile, myself, and Frank Fletcher were able to go and meet, and they did. They've changed the new direction with the new director, and we are seeing a lot of progress happen with some of the work that was happening this fall and into this spring with the School Facilities Board. Now, building renewal made it into the skinny budget, and so did the past dollar percentage for new construction. But the new construction money was supposed to go up almost $90 per square foot, and it did not. Just the past dollars per square foot went into the formula. We are funded for our second phase of the high school, but not at the newest allocation, which the governor had proposed. So I still think that that's an area that with 5 million square feet, we're going to need to make sure that there continues to be money in building renewal, the School Facilities Board money, and in new construction to finish us out, but also to help our other school districts across Arizona, since they were helping us in the past, make sure that there's money available for schools for new construction. That was a huge piece, and that was number 2 on our priority list, and I think we still did a really good job of advocating, and you saw that within the budget. Number 3 is in our priority list was transparency, and there wasn't a lot that Chandler specifically did, or EFRG, but it's something the school board was trying for, but there wasn't any new bills that were passed related to transparency. For example, the classroom site fund report is only for district schools. It's not for charter schools. There's some other pieces that we think that school districts are held accountable for that some of our other entities in education, especially charters and others, do not have to have. So it's an area I still think is something that's needed across our state, and that we still believe in, but not very much work got done on that. We also, there are another category that we worked on was district additional assistance, and we were hoping for a full restoration of that. They were going to expedite it before COVID and when our economy was doing extremely well. When the skinny budget was approved, only half of that final restoration was approved. So it's still a good chunk of restoration. We have one more year to be fully restored. But unfortunately, we were hoping for about $6 million in Chandler's budget. We're getting about $3 additional million. So still a piece of it, but we were hoping for all of it. And we still have one more year to get final restoration of district additional assistance. So still an important agenda item for next year is to fully fund district additional assistance, especially because of the need for technology, internet access across not only our districts, but across the state. So that's super important. Another area that that ultimately districts were talking about was Proposition 301 and the redefining and probably a reclarification of Prop 301 or an expansion on that. There was a lot of discussions and some bills thrown out about that. But in the future, we're going to need to address that. That's probably something in the future we all need to talk about. There's some language that people are concerned about with the renewal of Prop 301, and it's something that still needs to be on our agenda to try to figure out how do we expand 301? Do we need to modify it? What does that look like for the future? The only other thing individually that Chandler Unified specifically was looking into and trying to accomplish was we wanted to see the override language be changed to 10 years versus 5 years. That was important. And we had a House bill that we were working towards. It was House Bill 2518. It was dead at the time. We were hoping it would come back with the budget process, but we were hoping that eventually we can go from every 5 years having to do an override, and for our district we do them every 4, but to go to 10 years. And so that's something we still think is important for the future. We think there's a lot of voter fatigue, and we would love to be able to go after that every 10 years. There's a lot of bills that we were trying to work on related to academic credit transfers, public work payments, and other things that did not go through with the process. Some of them bad bills, some of them good bills. And if bills come back, we'll still continue to work those in May. We were told originally that it was pretty much everything was going to die, just the skinny budget was going to be approved. But then today things changed, and they're coming back on May 4th, and we're not quite sure where they're at. But if the skinny budget is approved, then I would suggest taking the same items that we had this year because they're still very important. The items that we approved last year are critical. The first one, again, was just funding the formula. The other piece was ongoing funding for district equipment and facilities. And I think that building renewal is going to be extremely important, and district capital is going to be extremely important. And then transparency is always important, especially in today's in today's academic setting. Special education is critical, and I think that we have a chance of winning that. We've been educating a lot of people on that, and I think that it's definitely something that needs to be funded and at a higher level. And so I think we're on the right track, and our items that we had last year are still very important for the future.
It sounds like
you,
for the
Mary.
I'm sorry. This is Laura.
I was saying thank you.
It sounds like from your summary that all these issues have not been resolved yet. A few we've made some steps towards, but are not there yet. And then the inclusion of the bond and override, expanding it to 10 years. And also, I'd like to throw out there to take a look at how the phrasing must be on a bond and override can be very confusing to voters and, to be honest, disingenuous. And to make it sound like there's an increase when it's maintaining at a certain rate. So I was wondering if the other board members would be interested in adding that on as the third additional item to expand it to 10 years and to make the language neutral or accurate rather than saying there's an increase when actually it's maintaining a rate that we currently have?
It appears as though we are only allowed to add 2 new items, and unless we can find 2 new additional items for consideration. So those 2 that are at the bottom, we would have to kind of
So the one
delete.
you could probably take off is the reform of the School Facilities Board and processes and procedures. We think that Andy Tobin has done a very good job of fixing this process, and he has spoke to Dr. Castile and myself and Frank Fletcher, and we have seen a huge improvement in that area, and we really think he's going to fix things. He's had auditors into the School Facilities Board. They're working on it. They're working on the grant system. So there is a possibility that that is one that we could probably take off and then add the information on override and bond language to make it more neutral to the voter, more accurate.
And since it is just a since it does have to deal with the same topic, the bonds and overrides, we could probably craft that additional item to make it a compound item to allow the 10 years and the language corrections.
Mrs.
That's
Marsden?
exactly what I was thinking, Barb.
Yeah.
I can get language. We have a couple people who help us with that. We can give you some language. We have talked about that many times in our Education Finance Reform Group and with Stiefel and our bond council. And so I could help draft some language for that and have that to you. I'll have Dr. Castile send it out when I get it if you'd like.
Mrs. Marsden,
And then
I'm sorry.
I think, yeah, I was thinking I would like to be able to pretty much, get our ideas and the changes that we want, because we are only going to be having, we'll address that later, we will only be having one board meeting in May. So I'd like to be able to, get this passed through our board pretty, get it drafted and get it acceptable so that we can go ahead and approve it next time. So I think it's kind of, so we're, to summarize, staff is going to go ahead and do that, do some language with that and exchange that for the Reform School Facility Board processes and procedures.
Okay.
Is that the gist of it that we're asking for? Laura, is that, you agree with that?
I agree. I don't know what other board members think, but yes, thank you for summarizing.
Any comments from Lindsay or Karen or David?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
I just wanted to add that. Am
Yes, Mr. Evans.
I just wanted to add that when you look at these priorities, you think these are things that are going to take major change and years to put into place. But at the same time, it just astounds me that between LANA and other school districts and EFRG, it seems like it's primarily through those people or those resources. Some of these things, I just can't even believe the changes that have and improvements that you've made. Just, in one session, it's just astounding to me. And I know these things are building, but it's remarkable that you've gotten so much accomplished. And can I say so much more than the School Board Association's accomplished, but on behalf of all schools in all districts.
Thank you, David.
Yes, thanks, David. And I think that Megan Dellartino and Public Policy Partners with EFRG and our group have done a great job of communicating at least 3 to 4 topics every year and trying to run with those, trying to get bills and legislation. And that was a goal that had been set up by Dr. Castile and Joel Worth years ago, was to try to get agenda items that we could run with and actually make a financial difference. So that's what EFRG's, which is the Education Finance Reform Group's goal is to take 4 items every year and try to put them into a bill, or to, talk to the governor or the Speaker of the House and or the President of the Senate, Speaker of the House, and try to hopefully get some of our agenda items in by educating them. And over the years, that's helped a lot. Dr. Castile a couple years ago was really influential when she was able to talk to not only the governor, but Senator Yarbrough and Speaker of the House Mesner with the restoration of district additional assistance. That became huge, and I think all school districts, including ours, have really benefited from that. So we'll continue working hard in that area, but also our other organizations, ASBA, ASBO, ASA, all of the alphabet organizations have contributed to a lot of great things promoting education. And I just think it's a fight that we continue to have, and we just need to do a good job educating our leaders and trying to make sure that the bills that we put forward are something that we can attain.
Right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry, and thank you, Mr. Evans, and Mrs. Bruner for bringing up some of the good suggestions for some of these changes. So that will be on our next agenda for our next meeting. If we now go on to the CUSD Board Agenda Roadmap, as you can see, we will only be having one meeting in May. It'll be May 6th, and we have canceled our joint meeting with the City of Chandler that was supposed to be also in May, but that, as I say, that was canceled. And you can all look at what we will be doing at our next meeting, which I am also assuming will be a virtual meeting. So are there any questions to the Board Agenda Roadmap?
I just wanted to ask about on the board planning meeting, will that be on Facebook as well?
Yes.
I don't think the platform has been determined at the moment.
Not the exact platform, but it will be a public meeting. I think we're looking at Facebook or YouTube. Mrs. Bruner, I'm deferring to Mike Holland and Terry Locke as we look at what the best avenue is to do that, as well as your board retreat. So you have 2 more meetings here in the next few weeks.
And could we possibly post that on our Facebook page just to let people know when that does get decided, just so they know where to find it, instead of just on the website?
Yes, the directions are typically on the agenda, but we'll make sure it gets posted.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, we'll move on to our comments. Dr. Castile, do you have anything you'd like to comment on this evening?
Just a few things, Madam President. While our buildings are closed to the public during Arizona's Stay Home, Stay Healthy, Stay Connected, there is a great deal of work going behind the scenes, and I know for some we're moving too fast and others we're not moving fast enough. Our teachers and students continue to adapt to the new way of delivering our instruction. Professional development for staff, especially our elementary teachers, in the use of Google Classroom is ongoing, and elementary families will be seeing more evidence of that in the next few weeks. In light of the closure, we're in planning meetings, pretty intense ones related to the end of the year celebrations, especially in light of graduation, celebrating our retirees. And again, we're waiting for some direction from the state. We're in collaboration with East Valley School Districts as well as other districts across the state. Been in 3 meetings already with about 15 superintendents representative of every geographic area in the state. In addition, have talked to 5 superintendents just today. We're also looking at summer school options. Look forward to planning the planning meeting with the board to address some of their questions and certainly have them weigh in. There'll be much more information in the next 2 weeks. we're hiring staff for next year. We're gearing up for next year, and we're going to be flexible and prepared for whichever direction we go related to the coronavirus and whatever direction we get from the state and the school board, of course. Everything, we have prioritized communication and are routinely rolling it out on our website. We have well over 300,000 visits to the COVID-19 website, and just recently this week we have posted a link at the request of a few different community organizations who wanted to assist in acquiring technology devices for some of our families that were having difficulty logging on and having access. We've had some donations already received. We prepared a link at their request to make it easy for their colleagues and other businesses who wanted to help that effort to donate. We've also had a number of outreaches relative to feeding our families on the weekend and trying to make those connections and respond to all the community groups that want to provide assistance. In closing, I guess I know you're aware of the passing of former Governor Jane D. Hull and her husband, Dr. Terry Hull. Unfortunately, on the same day, you will recall we have an elementary school named after Jane Hull, our former governor, honoring her contribution at that point in time to education and most notably the school facilities board and helping us get the funding we needed. An aside, for the community, Jeanette Polvani was chief financial officer and worked in Chandler schools for well over 30 years. Still helps us in consulting in some arenas, but Jane Hull, Terry, and Dr. Terry Hull were her parents, and we've certainly reached out to the entire family with our condolences. So again, stay tuned. We'll have a lot more information coming out and look forward to a planning and retreat with the school board.
Thank you, Dr. Castillo. So I guess I'll just go through everybody to see if we have any board member comments. Ms. Love?
I've got nothing tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. McGee?
No, just everybody stay well, stay safe.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Yeah, I just wanted just a couple quick things. First was thoughts go out to Jeanette Polvani, losing both of her parents the same day, and losing a great governor who really stood up and defended education and made things a lot better before I got here. But I've read a lot about her and know the contributions she's made to make our schools successful. So we'll really miss her and thank her for her contributions. And Jeanette was just amazing in terms of, we were just talking about school facilities, the things she was able to get put in place that helped schools get built and roads get built because schools were built. And so she was just an amazing person. I also have been thinking a lot about our Stugo presidents who come, especially at this time of year, we find out what their plans are for the future and what their final kind of legacies and they've set forth to share with their schools and to move forward and and schools that they've had a lot to do with, have them move forward. And kind of miss the fact that we don't get to hear from them, but even more so, we don't get to hear about all the great things that are happening at schools. We know they're moving forward. We're trying to figure out what we can possibly do for the graduating seniors, but keep in mind that they have great things to look forward to in the next chapter of their lives, and they don't know when their universities and colleges are going to start. So keep working hard and keep doing the great things you're doing. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mrs. Brunner?
I just wanted to say thank you to so many folks in the district and in the community who have pulled together to make the best out of a bad situation. Thank you to all the teachers who have worked to be creative and learn a lot about virtual learning in a short period of time. And thank you to all the parents who are helping their kids stay on track with that work. And thank you to the administration and everyone who's working to try to figure out plans for the seniors who I know have, concerns about what graduation could look like and how to celebrate them. And let them know that we're working on that and it's coming out soon. And we appreciate the IT people as well, who have really stepped up to help all these folks do all the different things in a virtual world.
Thank you, Mrs. Bruner. I also want to thank our community and all of the individuals who have really helped make this happen. It's been a team effort. It has been a massive effort from a lot of people, as Mrs. Bruner really indicated, between teachers, staff, parents, the students themselves, administration, community members. And I also wanted to thank our nutrition department, who has been working tirelessly to provide meals for those children who really need it, who were relying on school meals to get the nutrition that they needed. So, Dr. Castile, the last I heard, we were putting out about 80,000 meals a week. Is that correct?
Yes, we are distributing 3 times a week, breakfast and lunch, and then we have snacks and dinner offerings as well. And Mrs. Mawson, if I might, I know you have arranged to send our STUGO presidents, our student council presidents that typically come to the board meetings. Every year you give them a plaque. The board gives them the plaque with their name on it as a gift and appreciation and congratulations. And we will be sending those out with a letter from you on behalf of you're writing on behalf of the board. The other thing on the retirees I wanted to mention, Mr. Evans, you mentioned all the different celebrations. The retirees, typically you get to greet them in a meeting and give them a little clock, and we'll continue to do that. We're going to order those clocks and make sure we get them to them with a letter from the school board. So we're trying to, again, as Mrs. Bruner said, make the best out of a very difficult situation, and looking forward to sharing more on possible graduation plans in the event we can't hold our typical graduation.
Thank you, Dr. Castile. And if there's no other comments, we will go ahead and adjourn, and our next meeting will be on May 6th. Thank you very much. Good night.